This morning on the Sunrise Early News, breaking now, commuter chaos. The Sydney rail strike causes major disruptions despite an 11th hour court order. Melbourne synagogue attack. Police expected to declare the firebombing a terror attack today. Shock explosion, a wild blast rocks the Gold Coast. New video shows the moments leading up to the emergency. And the celebrations on the streets of Damascus and Sydney after the collapse of a 54-year dictatorship. What will it mean for Australia?
Live across Australia, this is Sunrise Early News.
Good morning. Let's get straight to that breaking news. And millions of Sydney commuters are bracing for disruptions and delays across the city's rail network today, despite the state government's successful late bid to stop a fresh wave of union strikes. The federal court banned industrial action from the rail unions late last night after negotiations with Transport for New South Wales broke down again. But the ruling came too late to protect against action this morning. Delays and cancellations are expected across the city. Federal and Victorian police are set to hold urgent talks this morning over Melbourne's terrifying synagogue attack, with officers expected to declare the firebomb attack a terrorist act. Politicians, including Anthony Albanese, have said the violent act falls under the definition of terrorism. Counter-terrorism units are involved in the investigation, but if declared a terrorist act, the offenders may be dealt with under special counter-terrorism laws. It comes as around 300 supporters of Jewish Australians gathered for a vigil near the burnt-out site. Police are investigating after one of Queensland's biggest party strips was thrown into chaos following an underground explosion in Surfers Paradise. The blast, caught on camera, rocked the busy street near Cavill Avenue, sparking evacuations from nearby businesses. A woman in her 20s was injured after falling into the hole moments before the blast. Authorities now trying to figure out what caused the explosion. Syrian refugees are gathering in solidarity in cities across the world to celebrate the downfall of the Assad regime. Live to Europe correspondent Ashley Mullaney. Ash, this is a watershed moment in the Middle East. So what happens now?
Eddie, it is all over for the Assad regime after 54 years in power. This is a new dawn for Syria. It is being described as their Berlin Wall moment, but there is anxiety too about what the future holds. With multiple different rebel factions in the country, there are still remnants of Islamic State too. So the question is, who will form government and who will take control of the country? Now, it was HTS, the rebel group, that led the charge, overthrowing the government in rapid time. And there were scenes of jubilation in Damascus and other cities around the world among Syrian refugees. Bashar al-Assad has fled the country. His allies, Russia, Iran and Hezbollah, all occupied with their own conflicts. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claiming credit for Assad's downfall. Take a listen.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire.
Among those celebrating on the streets were Syrian supporters in Western Sydney overnight, celebrating the downfall of Bashar al-Assad's iron grip over Syria. Eddie.
Thank you, Ash. New South Wales police have extra tools in their arsenal to search for knives as part of new laws coming into effect today. Senior ranking officers can use a metal detecting wand to scan people in public places without a warrant, including shopping centres, train stations and sports venues. But police are required to publish which locations the wands will be used at. The reforms have been backed by Brett and Belinda Beasley, who lost their 17-year-old son Jack in a frightening stabbing attack during a night out in Surfers Paradise in 2019. Well, Woolworths is right now restocking its bare shelves after Victorian distribution centre workers went on strike for 17 days. Staff accepted a 4% pay increase and have gone back to work. The supermarket giant also agreed not to punish workers if they can't pack pallets fast enough to meet AI-driven performance targets. The action cost Woolies more than $50 million. A man has drowned while swimming near popular parkland on the Gold Coast. It's understood the 29-year-old was sitting on a net with his friend when he jumped outside of the enclosure. Witnesses say a strong current pushed the man into the netting, causing him to get tangled in it. Despite a frantic rescue effort from other swimmers and emergency services, the man failed to resurface. Firefighters in Western Sydney have been forced to slice their way into suburban garage after a fire broke out in Auburn last night. Fire crews battled the blaze on Chestnut Road after midnight and had it under control within minutes. An elderly woman was treated by paramedics but was not seriously injured. The CSIRO has released a fresh report into the cost of building nuclear power plants in Australia, finding the energy source doesn't stack up against renewable energy. It follows criticism by the federal opposition that the CSIRO has been unfairly favoured wind and solar in the past. Peter Dutton is preparing to release the costings of his party's nuclear policy. That's going to happen later this week. The prayers of France and the Catholic Church have been answered with the spectacular reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral early this morning. Not even 1,000 years or a fire from hell could destroy it.
The French heart beats again. Deep in the very soul of Paris, restarted by the city's archbishop and the will of a nation. Ushering the world back inside their beloved Catholic cathedral. The worries of the world washed away briefly to celebrate this magnificent renaissance. The fulfillment of a promise to rebuild what fire had ruined but not destroyed. And for the firefighters who saved it, the eternal love of this church and this country. They are now the princes of Notre Dame.
Gratitude à l'égard de tous ceux qui ont sauvé.
With his own presidency about to be reborn, US President-elect Donald Trump headlined a long list of world leaders, a mini summit of sorts, including this warm reunion with the future head of the Church of England.
Good man, this one.
This moment, President Macron hopes will not only be an architectural but a geopolitical renaissance. What better reminder to Donald Trump that France is America's oldest ally than placing him at the centre of Notre Dame's reopening during a time of war.
The Ukrainian president was also here, his country's many Christians in everyone's prayers. Outside, in the rain and bitter cold, the French people marvelled at their cherished monument, its near 1,000 years of history and this painful chapter in it.
Exceptionnel.
But the final word came from the cathedral itself. Mercy for an overwhelming outpouring of affection in this city of love. In Paris, Ben Downey, 7 News.
Well, we're used to seeing him on a sleigh, but Santa, well, dozens of his helpers actually, have taken a ride on jet skis on the Gold Coast. It was all for a very good cause, the Christmas convoy raising money for presents for kids in care.